What's up? It's Trey Harris here, wide receiver for Los Angeles Chargers, and you're tuning in to Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in the show, make sure to hit that like, subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein. We are just over 2 weeks until the NFL draft. April 23rd is right around the corner. It's palpable. You can taste it in the air, Dan. It's almost here, and we have so many things that we need to do before April 23rd. Namely, one of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite episode, to do every single year. When it's April, you know it gets serious, and there's always time for one special guest that comes onto this show. Not only 6 years running, not only the man who kicked off the Chargers Unleashed banner, but then, as you so eloquently do every single time, please let the good people at home know, who is this special guest?
There's no real introduction that will do him justice. Trevor Sikkema, the free agent, the belle of the ball, I would call, joins us here on Chargers Unleashed. We'll be talking all things NFL draft, all things free agency, how this Chargers team did, what are some of the holes they need to fill, how Joe Ortiz is doing. All of that and more. Trevor Sikkema is one of, if not the best in the industry. We are so fortunate to have him on. One of the best in the industry, but also just one of the best dudes. So excited for that one, Jake. Before we get to that, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel.
Today's episode of Chargers Unleashed is being brought to you by FanDuel. The betting does not stop for the NFL, even in the offseason, and FanDuel gives you the capability to stay in the action with NFL futures right now. You can get the Los Angeles Chargers at plus 185 to win the AFC West and plus 1,500 to win the Super Bowl. So the value is sitting right there and waiting for anybody who would like to be riding with the Chargers. If that is what you are going to do, make sure you use that promo code Chargers LAFB for your chance to win at FanDuel, and let them know that Chargers Unleashed sent you. You have to give probably 100 more times between now and April 23rd. Dan, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Trevor Sikkema joins Chargers Unleashed next. And special guest, free agent of the year, the one and only Trevor Sikkema. I think this is year 6 now. You've been doing this with us, Trevor.
Is it?
Crazy. It's
year 6 doing this with us.
That rules. Wow.
But it has flown by, and I'm so excited to have you here now with the draft, less than 3 weeks away?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. We're at the point where I almost have 250 scouting reports done, final scouting reports done, and I would like to get between 275 and 300 this year. You know, some things happened, in my industry world over the last couple of weeks, which kind of derailed that a little bit, but we're still trying to get to over 275. So, man, that means that anytime I get to this number, anytime I'm close to 250, I know that we're getting close. I know that we're getting close to draft weekend. And so I can't wait, man. I'm very excited for it.
Like I said, number one free agent available. I don't care phase 1, phase 2, pre-draft, post-draft. You know who it is, the man in the middle. Trevor, we got to talk all things Chargers, all things NFL draft, maybe some free agency stuff, but let's just snap the line right now. Given what you've seen this Chargers team do in the past under Jim Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz, given the free agency they've had, the draft they've had, and given what their current holes are, if you had to pen a letter to Joe Ortiz for what you'd like him to do between now and the end of the draft season, what would your letter entail?
Wow. That's an excellent question. That is a truly excellent question. I love that. So I think that the letter that I would write to Ortiz is just to, and it's the same thing to Jim Harbaugh, and it's the same thing to Mike McDaniel. I think the Mike McDaniel point is the one that I am the most focused on right now, because when I look at McDaniel and when I think about Jim Harbaugh, I feel like Harbaugh is more of a, lean into the old school type of, I think the Chargers were one of the teams that ran more 22 personnel than anybody else out there in the NFL last year. They're very I think they can be very heavy in their approach. Now, Jim Harbaugh has modernized things, right? So it's not totally like the old school days. But when you think of Mike McDaniel, you think of everything that is so horizontal and speed based and all of that. And I would say the letter that I would pen to Ortiz is do what you need to do to make sure that the offense, and I specifically mean the offensive line when I say this, has the players that you want for this offense to run efficiently. Now, I don't know how much of that is necessarily going to be like, okay, this is Harbaugh's offense and McDaniel is kind of just the one who's like orchestrating things, or if it's going to be more of like, hey, Mike, you got the keys. Like, take this offense, take Justin Herbert and do whatever you want with this. But to me, the most important part of all of this, especially with Jesse Minter's departure, and I know that, they feel like they're okay on the defense side of the ball because they've got a good amount of talent. It's not like they're going to be abysmal there. But with Jesse Minter's departure and with them hiring Mike McDaniel, to me, it basically signals like, we want to be that offensive team. Like, we want to be that. We want that to be our identity of this football club. And so I would say that when you look at maybe some philosophies that might be different with what I've seen with Harbaugh over the years versus Mike McDaniel, you have a quarterback that is argued to be a top 5 quarterback. I'm not here for the next 3 hours to get into the Justin Herbert debate of is he top 5, is he not? He's a top 5 conversation quarterback. And whenever you have that, it is your responsibility to put everything that you need around that quarterback to make sure that they can play the way that they want to for you to get to the heights that you want to get to. So to me, that would be the letter that I would pen to Ortiz is do not let some free agent additions on the offensive side of things, or even so I don't want to say neglect the holes on the defense, because that's not what I mean, but I think offense should be the priority for them for the rest of this offseason, for this draft, making sure that team is as close to the skill set identity that Mike McDaniel is going to want to run as possible.
And it's interesting that you said it is like Joe Ortiz, get the guys that you want. And you've acknowledged this, Trevor, on previous episodes, that Charger fans have kind of been up in arms throughout free agency, and not the happiest bunch out there with the moves or lack thereof that Joe Ortiz has done over the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. Cole Strange, you bring back Trevor Penning, you bring back Trey Pipkins. It's been more depth signings than anything else. And people were a little bit confused with how much money that the Chargers went into this free agency period with. That the biggest addition to the offensive line, given the 3 that you let go, obviously Tyler Biadasz being probably the one that has been the most well received, but Cole Strange being the other, and them not being in on a lot of those other low level offensive line additions that wouldn't have counted against the comp pick formula. What were your thoughts kind of just as far as how those weeks progressed and how you saw their approach to free agency carry out?
Yeah, I mean, they were more quiet than I thought that they were going to be, not even from just a cap space perspective, but also from a draft capital perspective, right? Because they have 5 picks, 6 picks. What is it in this draft? I think they have 5 picks. And so that knowing that they had money to spend, and knowing that because if they had a lot of cap to spend and they didn't love the free agency class, because I don't know if any team really loved a lot of the free agency class. I mean, clearly the Panthers did, because they got Devin Lloyd and Jalen Phillips, but there's just and the Raiders did as well with all the additions that they made, but they kind of needed to, right? I think as a whole, this free agency class was a little bit more quiet, and that's kind of reflective of the draft class as well. But normally, if you have a lot of if you have a lot of salary cap space to work with, and you don't have a lot of draft capital, you would think that you would be a little bit more aggressive and you would be a little bit more active. So yeah, I was a little surprised that the Chargers were not more involved in some of the big players when it came to free agency. But it's not like you have to hit a cap floor every year, but it's not like, oh, they didn't spend this cap money, now they're going to lose it. Now it just kind of means that it rolls over into next year, right? And maybe you're looking at next year's free agency class and you like that a lot more. Maybe you feel like there's some sort of trade that might be in the works at some point that you feel like you could make during the trade deadline in the middle of the season, because you're going to have the cap space to be able to do it. I don't know exactly what their plan is, but yeah, I was a little shocked that they were not a little bit more aggressive in free agency.
Now, if you were to look at the roster and look at I think a lot of Chargers fans are wondering what is that big fish that might be out there, that door number 3 that maybe no one's thinking about right now? Whether that's a free agent, and probably less so free agent, more so trade, maybe that can give you trick capital, whatever it is. Is there, you saw Dexter Lawrence go out as a trade candidate so far today.
Yeah.
Is there any big fish out there that you're like, what? Them in powder blue could be, what?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the draft capital that you would have to trade to go get them, Dexter Lawrence is the perfect player, right? I mean, like, you've got the salary cap to be able to work with his contract and sign him to an extension. He's a monster of a nose tackle. He's phenomenal as a run defender. He was one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in the league, and that's coming off of even a down year for his standards. So when you look at the Chargers, if it just kind of depends on, do they feel like they have the draft capital to make it worth it for them, where maybe a first rounder this year and a second rounder next year could potentially get it done, because you got to sign him to a contract afterwards. But if you do, you're hitting a major need on the interior defensive line, which, look, I do a lot of mock drafts for the Chargers, and there's a lot of Chargers fans that I'll like talk to, or I'll see their mocks and everything. And it's like, okay, well, some of them have Cade McDonald, or in the past, Caleb Banks, or, Christian Miller from Georgia, or things like that. And when you look at it, like, all right, we have all this cap space to spend now. If we basically say it's just going to cost us an extra second round pick next year, and the defensive lineman that we get to quote unquote pick at 22 is Dexter Lawrence. Like, all of a sudden that looks really, really good for the Chargers. So they're one of my top landing spots for Lawrence, because I think they make the most sense in that regard. And then, you get into, like, I don't think A.J. Brown's going to be on the Philadelphia Eagles much longer. Now, everybody just assumes he's going to the Patriots, but if he goes to an offense with Justin Herbert, like, I don't think he's going to be pissed about it, right? It's not like he's going to be mad. I think the Mike Vrabel connection obviously is the one that makes the most sense for him going to New England. But if he is truly on the trade block, which I think he is, the Chargers should absolutely be one of those teams that should say, hey, what do you want for A.J. Brown? Because we got the money to be able to trade for him, and we got the draft assets to be able to do it. I don't think they'd trade 22, so maybe there's a little bit of a hang up there, just given that A.J. Brown's older, and that you'd have to absorb his contract and maybe do something with the contract. I don't know, but those are the two that I think make the most sense for them at this point. But thankfully for the Chargers, those are, I think, the two big fish that are out there, and they make a lot of sense for this roster if they were to go after them.
Let's fire up the Trevor Sikkema draft machine, as he said. So I want to talk to you about the offensive line situation, as you were discussing, obviously, the note to Joe Ortiz in terms of what you're going to be investing in. Everybody's pipe dream for them would be for Ioane to fall to 22. It just seems so unlikely with teams like Baltimore, Detroit, with Pittsburgh in front of them. And I'm really interested to hear, especially since you were saying where you're at with all of your scouting reports now, that next tier of interior offensive linemen, Pregnon, Bisontis. Beyond that, you maybe look at Keylan Rutledge or Bo Stevens. Is there anybody that has elevated into your discussion to say, like, oh yeah, like back into the first round, this would be a fair shot for Pregnon or Bisontis? Because the way that it kind of looks out, it's either going to be edge or offensive lineman with either 22 or 55. And is it worth it if you pass at 22 to see what you might possibly miss out on by the time that you get to 55?
So I think Bisontis is a really nice scheme fit for them. I think Pregnon is as well, but I like Chase Bisontis a good amount more than I like Emmanuel Pregnon. Not that Emmanuel Pregnon wouldn't be good for them, but if you're talking about 22 or trading back a little bit from 22, Bisontis is the one that I think has a legitimate shot to be able to get into the back end of the first round. I'm not so sure that's the case for Emmanuel Pregnon, but both of those guys I think are more zone blocking, zone run scheme, interior offensive lineman. I think that Chase Bisontis is a really nice pass protector as well. So to me, he's the one who makes the most sense, who's sort of like next in line there. I think Keylan Rutledge is more of a downhill run game type of guard, more of a man and gap scheme run blocking concept type of a guard, but he's a good athlete to where it's not, if he got drafted to the Chargers, I wouldn't say like, terrible scheme fit. Like, he's not going to work. I don't think that at all with him. So on my board, I have Bisontis and Rutledge pretty close. I've got them right around like the mid 30s on my big board. And so again, like at 22, they'd be early for me. But if you could trade down, maybe even outside of the first round, I think you've got a chance to draft one of those guys and be pretty happy. And then Pregnon, I've got a little bit further down. He's in the late 40s right now. This isn't like my 100% final board, but he's ranked like 48 for me right now. So a really nice second round option. But outside of Ioane, I would say Ioane and Specer Fano. Obviously, if Fano can make it to 22, I think you draft him and you put him at guard and you feel wonderful about it because you're assembling a dominant offensive line. But outside of them, I'd be pretty confident in Bisontis just for who he is as a pass protector. And then Rutledge for the power and speed blend that he plays with. I think those two guys are my next in line.
So then I'm trying to get out ahead of this for Chargers fans because I know how this is going to go. If we get to round 2, if we get to pick 55 or 54 and a guard isn't picked and then 55 comes in and somehow it's not a guard.
Whoops.
How far can this train go down the tracks before like it is slim pickings and you are left with Trevor Penning as your starting guard?
Well, so they pick it's 55 and then 86 is the next one. If I'm looking at Tankathon here, there's a world where Gennings Dunker from Iowa could be your pick as a guard at 86. There's a world. I think he'll get picked before then, but his tackle tape is shaky, even for somebody who likes Gennings Dunker a lot. Like his tackle tape is shaky, and I think of a lot of teams just go like, well, he's just a guard, but he hadn't played much guard, if at all. And so there's a little bit of a projection there. I think he's excellent in the zone blocking scheme that you would want from Mike McDaniel, and he's a really good athlete in that regard. So I think he'd be a great pick for them at 86, but does he make it to 86? Jalen Farmer from Kentucky is another one. Crazy athlete. I mean, like this team, I think would be all in on drafting him at 86 just because the first snap that I watched of Jalen Farmer, who is, let me make sure that I have his measurables right. Where are these?
Peek behind the curtains.
He is 6'5", 312 pounds, and has 34 1/4 inch arms. So that's 73rd percentile, 46th percentile, and then the arm length is 86th percentile. Okay. The first snap that I watched of him, I turned on the tape and I do a million things. Like I'll go over the grades, I'll go over the stats, and I'll go like, okay, I'm about to dive into the film. Okay, what number is he? Okay, all right, he's this number. Okay, yeah, let's pull up the film. And I watched the first play and I go, that can't be him. And I was like, that's their tight end, right? And then like I rewind it and I double check the number. I'm like, oh my gosh, he carries 312 pounds, about as well as any human I've ever seen. And he explodes. He is a really good athlete for his size as well. So that's somebody who, inconsistencies to his game, but the way this guy gets off the ball, the way that he can move horizontally, the way that he can reach landmarks in mid and outside zone, you feel great about drafting and developing this guy at 86. Again, the question just becomes, is he going to be available at 86? Because after that, after those two guys who you would be praying for at that point to get to you there, you're looking at Billy Schrauth from Notre Dame.
The squinting alone tells us.
Well, I mean, like Billy Schrauth, who is solid, but he is much more of a downhill run game type of interior offensive lineman. I have him ranked outside of my top 100. Trey Zune from Texas A&M, who I like. He's a tackle who I think is going to play guard at the next level, but again, more of like a downhill run blocking concept type of a player. The same thing with Jeremiah Wright. Logan Jones all of a sudden becomes like the next interior player there, but he's a center only type of prospect. I mean, the next zone blocking guard that I have is, oh man, like Armaj Reed Adams with like a 5th round grade.
Oh no, folks who no one's heard of.
So, hey, Armaj Reed Adams, good athlete, and he's a big boy. He's built really well. So I mean, look, if they draft him in like the 6th round, they somehow get him there, or you get him at 123, whatever, you can go, I can deal with it. But yeah, it gets pretty dicey to the whole point of the question that you were asking here. It gets pretty dicey if you don't take offensive linemen at 55. And the tough part about the offensive line conversation with the Chargers, and I've done Chargers mock drafts before, is you go, Okay, they pick at 22. Fano and Ioane, they probably don't make it there at 22. And then you go 55. All right, well, Rutledge, Pregnon, and Bisontis, they probably don't make it to 55. And then you go 86 and you go, Jennings Dunker and Jalen Farmer, but they might not make it to 86. So you're in this situation where when I have done Chargers mocks, and like we'll do them live on the Stock Exchange show, and I'll have fans, people in the chat, like Chargers fans in the chat and everything, they'll be like, hey, like pick Pregnon at 22. And I'm like, God, that's early for me. I'm like, that's early for me, but then he's not going to make it to 55. So it's this really, and then it's the same thing with the other guys. It's like, well, are you really going to draft maybe Jalen Farmer if you believe in the potential of him, but like, you really going to draft like Jalen Farmer or Gennings Dunker at 55? Maybe you will, but I think that might be a little early for those two guys.
It feels like the Bermuda Triangle, where like there's the three situations they have is like either they trade back and then they can get to that position.
Yeah.
They reach, or they pray that somebody falls.
Kinda, yes. And you don't want to do a lot of praying on draft weekend. I'm a religious guy myself, so I hate to downplay the importance of it, but like, you don't want to be saying a lot of Hail Marys. You don't want Ortiz going like, hey God, it's me again, in the second round. You don't want a lot of that. So yeah, they're in a tough spot.
Another position. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask a future question related to Joe Ortiz, how he did the Joe
to prayer and religion. We can be
here
a while.
Yes.
Dearly beloved. No, I'll save mine. Jake, go ahead. Mine's easy.
I was going to go into the next most important position for them, and obviously it kind of goes hand in hand with the offensive line, is the edge class. Mm-hmm. It's a ridiculously deep edge class, and yes, they get a little bit of leeway with bringing in Khalil Mack. Obviously, they lose a Dafe big time to free agency, to a huge bag to Washington.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this edge class, because you're obviously looking for someone who can come in and can complement Mack and Tully this year, but you're looking for beyond in 2027 for who's eventually going to be the heir apparent to Khalil Mack. And by all means, you have 10 minutes to tell everybody once again why Akheem Mesidor is an absolute monster.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
Okay, so I love Akheem Mesidor. Like if we're talking about targets at 22, like if we're talking about first round targets for edge rusher, I'm a big Akheem Mesidor guy. Now I understand, like he is a 6-year type. There we go. The train is rolling. Akheem Mesidor is in fact in the station. You better get on, or you're going to get run over. I understand that he is a 6-year player. He's going to be 25 years old this year as a rookie. Is that ideal? No. Do I wish that he was even 23? Yes, of course. But I think there's context to the people that specifically push back on, hey, he's 25 years old. He's beating up on 18 and 19-year-olds. Like he's beating up on teenagers. Of course, he's going to look good. First of all, how many 18, 19 true freshmen do you know that were starting in college football? Because it's not as many as that phrase that you're saying so confidently makes it seem. The reality is that he was probably going up against guys who were 22 and 23 years old because it's an older college football landscape. That's not to take away from the point that people are bringing up. But the real counterpoint for what people are bringing up there is he a late breakout player? Should we be worried about that there? And I would say not as much. Not to say that there's I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, all of your concerns about Mesidor, they have no merit, they have no ground. I'm not here to say that. I understand them. I'll just give you a little bit more context. So when he first came into college football as a recruit, he was first at West Virginia. He played defensive tackle at West Virginia. He was a defensive tackle recruit. Then he put on even more weight and he moved to nose tackle the second year that he was with the Mountaineers. He transfers down to Miami. He plays defensive tackle and nose tackle his first year there, plays more defensive tackle the next year. Then he continued to lose weight. Now he's an edge rusher. So he's really only been playing edge rusher for the last 2 years. And I would tell you that as a pure outside linebacker type of edge rusher, he's only been playing that the last year. This is the last year that he has been a outside linebacker type of an edge rusher. And Jason Taylor, the Hall of Famer, who is his position coach at Miami, not only did he hone in his skills incredibly well, and he's one of those technically sound pass rushers with an incredibly deep pass rush bag to go along with a great motor that never stops. He's still got the strength from his days playing interior defensive line. All that to say, Jason Taylor also praised Mesidor for his conditioning. He said that he started to swim to get into shape. And he said that Ruben Bain came out one morning to the pool and was like doing the swimming conditioning with Mesidor, and he got like halfway through and he's like, brother, you're insane. Like I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Mesidor's like, all right, buddy, we're halfway done. So you can go ahead and get to breakfast. I'm gonna keep finishing this out. So I just think that there's so much to like about the motor that he plays with, the pass rush plan, the hand usage, the counters, the run defense stuff, how he can play with power and finesse now. He's built at 6'3", 265 pounds, the way that you want an outside linebacker to be an edge rusher, I should say, to be built at the NFL level. So I think that he is a worthwhile pick for a team that is in a winning window. All right. Would I say that he's a good pick for the Arizona, independent of them picking higher in the draft? Is he a good pick for the Cardinals and he is a good pick for the Miami Dolphins? No, don't pick him. There's no need. Your team's bad. You're going to be bad for a couple of years. And by the time you get good, he's going to be 28, 29 years old. But if you need a guy to come in to be a pass rusher for you right away and maximize a 4-year rookie contract window, this can be your guy. And I think for the Chargers, they're in a winning window. They want to win now. Go get a good pass rusher. So I think he's an option for them at number 22. Then you start to get into a different bucket of guys like maybe you consider Cassius Howard from Texas A&M. But in reality, I think that edge rusher's a little tricky at 22 because I would probably, again, I'd trade down. I think the Chargers are in a very advantageous situation to trade down from 22 because it puts them in a better bucket for an interior offensive lineman if they want one. And it also puts them in a better bucket for an edge rusher because you get down into back end of the first round territory. Now you start thinking about Cassius Howell, but you start thinking about like Malachi Lawrence, if you want him to be the speed rusher to take over for Tuli Tuipulotu. You start thinking about Gabe Akis from Illinois. He could take over for Khalil Mack when Khalil Mack is done as sort of that more powerful outside linebacker edge rusher. The same with TJ Parker or Zion Young. R. Mason Thomas goes back to that finesse, flashy outside linebacker type of speed presence for you. And you feel so much better about that if you get to trade down from that 22 spot. So that's the way that I would set up the edge rusher conversation for them at 22.
So then it takes two to tango, right? So Jake has been saying this for decades. Like, just trade down. Just give me 1 year where I can trade down.
Speaking about praying to the gods, I've been praying to the football gods for a trade down, and I haven't been answered yet.
So who or why would someone trade up to 22?
Ty Simpson's the easy answer, but unfortunately you're one pick behind the Steelers. So like, there's not that enticing, like, oh, you better jump the Steelers, right? Like the Bucs are in an interesting spot at 15 in front of the Jets where they might be able to convince teams like, oh, you better trade up if you want Ty Simpson because the Jets are sitting there at 16, So I think he is somebody that maybe garners that sort of like trade. An offensive lineman is probably the next call here.
Like a tackle.
Like a Caleb Lomu, a Maxianature, if Caden Proctor's still available. Like, to me, that probably makes a lot of sense for them. But that's about it. Like, to your point, like, I think it's either you're convincing somebody to trade up for a specific offensive tackle that they would really want, or the quarterback, and we know the quarterback's not in heavy demand this year.
Okay, so then the question I was going to ask you earlier, and the Malik Neighbors draft. So Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, we had Roma Dunze that year.
Brian Thomas Jr., yep.
Joe Alt was the pick. And when Joe Alt was the pick, a lot of Chargers fans freaked out. Then you fast forward, Chargers fans were then rejoiced once they saw the cards come in, trade up, bring in Ladd McConkey. So that 1-2 duo. What would you see as like the 1-2 duo of, well, sure, they could go pick an edge or offensive lineman or receiver, whatever. But if you turned it a different angle and you looked at it after day 2, this might be the better situation. Like, what would be your yang to the yin, if you will?
So are you saying, am I building a draft strategy between like edge and offensive line? Is that what you're asking here?
Sure. It could be that, or if there's like another position that you think Chargers got to go in on in round 1, 2, or 3.
Interesting. Well, it's kind of tough because at 22, I think the only wide receiver that's going to be left on the board for them at 22 is Jordan Tyson. And you can like convince yourself that Jordan Tyson will be worth 22. I just think he's going to go much later. Like I feel like Jordan Tyson's not getting picked until the second round. I don't think he's going to be a first round player, at least as it stands a couple weeks out for the draft. They don't need offensive tackle. So like offensive tackle is kind of like the other sneaky pick that we could potentially have there. If you believe that Kenyon Sadiq was sort of being held back from production in Oregon's offense, he's the ultimate wild card here. Because if I get to sell you a world where they draft, now this is best case scenario, but like if I get to tell you that they get to draft Kenyon Sadiq and then Malachi Lawrence or R. Mason Thomas, and then like Jalen Farmer or Gennings Dunker, like I mentioned before, all of a sudden, like that haul's phenomenal. Like that is of the plans that we didn't talk about. Like that's one that I think could really pay out big time for them if they're able to hit the draft like that. To sort of answer your question there.
Man, the hair would be pulled, TVs would be shattered, but then they'd have to go back to Best Buy and buy new ones by the end of day 2.
Trevor, I'm glad you brought up Jordan Tyson because that was actually, when you were talking about trade back scenarios and for players specifically, I would have thought if there was a wide receiver on the board, you look at teams like Miami or other teams behind them that could possibly use another offensive weapon as a trade up possibility. But just talking about the wide receivers in general, I wanted to get your thoughts because the Chargers were in on the Alec Pierce market. They were in on the Rashid Shaheed market. So obviously it looks like they're trying to get Mike McDaniel that speed aspect that he always liked during his time in Miami. If we're looking for that, and it is kind of hard to play this out with the fact that right now the Chargers only have 5 selections. For me, and yes, strictly just basing this off of, bigger needs in edge and offensive linemen and what you need there, to me, it doesn't seem like any type of interest to even have a conversation about until at least round 3. But if we're talking about those specific guys that fit the mold for a Mike McDaniel-led offense, who are the ones that stick out to you?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think the two guys that you mentioned there are vertical stretchers, right? And I think that's you'd be like, okay, well, is that what we're looking to add to this offense? But it kind of depends. Like I would kind of to answer that question, I would need to ask you guys a question, because if you tell me, hey, what receivers do you think that they would be interested in round 3 and beyond? I would tell you, well, you already have Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith. Like, I don't really know why they would use that
surplus
if they believe in those guys. So my question back to you guys, because y'all cover the team and you know the team better than I do. Are they still in on Trey Harris and those two guys? I figured that they would be. And if that's the case, then I could see them making a big splash at wide receiver, like maybe they would have with like Pierce and another like other, like big time free agents.
Like a true one, true X.
Yes, they could absolutely use that. But the Chargers are one of those teams that's really interesting to me because they're kind of like what the Carolina Panthers were last year with wide receiver, where you looked at who they had at wide receiver, Carolina, and you said, well, wide receiver is a need, but only wide receiver 1 is a need, because it's not like I could just put wide receiver on a team needs list on a mock draft simulator and it's like, oh, they drafted a wide receiver in round 3. It's like that didn't really accomplish anything. And when you look at the Chargers, they've got Quentin Johnson, they have Trey Harris, they have Ladd McConkey, they have Keandre Lambert-Smith, you have Oronde Gadsden, who's for all intents and purposes a wide receiver. So you look at that collective of names and you go, all right, they're good, but would they want Carnell Tate? Yes. So that they're in a situation where you're almost like, if you're the Chargers, you're either in my opinion, you're either drafting a wide receiver at 22. If one of them falls to you, mainly, I guess, Jordan Tyson and Carnell Tate, because I don't know if they would view Mekhi Lemon as that much of a wide receiver one presence next to.
Is it too early for like a Denzel Boston?
No, I guess Boston. I just don't know if Boston's going to be like a superstar one. Like, I think he's good.
Fair.
I like Boston. I do. I like Denzel Boston. And I think some people who look at Boston and they're like, nah, he's a bum. He can't separate. He's just big and he's not like that. I don't agree with. But again, for some teams, I would like Denzel Boston for the Cleveland Browns at 26. That's only 4 picks past where the Chargers are selecting. So people might go, wait a second, hold on. You just told me that you wouldn't like Boston at 22. Now you like him at 26? Because I think that his presence makes a much bigger difference for the Browns. If you throw Denzel Boston in with the Chargers, does it make things better? Yes. Does it make things better than them drafting an edge rusher or an offensive lineman? Or I don't know. Like I don't, and I would probably lean no, depending on how the board falls. But that's sort of what is in my head when I think about the Chargers situation.
So, but I think it goes back to the initial question of like the pen to paper to Joe Ortiz. Like the pen to paper was not asking for more playmakers.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like
that's fair.
The answer is like, it's the offensive line. If you want to call Sadiq in that, I mean, they brought in a Keaton Mitchell, they brought in Al Kingle, they brought in Bisontis. Like they're telling you the story of what is important to them. And so right now it seems like the missing piece, again, they're smarter than I am, but it seems pretty clear that like guard is pretty darn important right now. Probably 2 of them, maybe a backup center. I don't know. But those are the things, those are the positions that will unlock Justin Herbert, that will unlock the run game, that will unlock Quentin Johnson, Ladder Conkey, etc. Right. How much does another receiver unlock if you have nobody that's going to improve your offensive line? I guess the other question I was going to ask you was going to be on the defensive side. A lot of people are kind of sleeping on like the corner safety position for this Chargers team. And you know, they have a ton of young corners. If you want to put Derwin in the slot corner position, fine. But they've got a bunch of young corners. I wouldn't say they have like a true CB1. Aside from Elijah Molden, they've got Tony Jefferson, who's up there, right? They've
preseason goat, Tony Jefferson.
He is.
RJ Mickens as well. But like the secondary could be something that they look at as well. Is there a sneaky player or two that you can see fitting in this Jesse Minter, now Chris O'Leary style defense that might be tailor-made that maybe people aren't thinking about?
I mean, corner, it just depends on how much faith you have. Because I'll be honest, like when I looked at this corner room for this team last year, I had worries. And I was like, I don't know if they have enough here. And then it felt like they were cool with it. And then those guys were like playing well. And so I was like, okay, I guess I don't know ball. And so it was one of those situations where now we're in the offseason and now I don't know the answers to the question. Are they like, no, this is exactly what we thought that it was going to be? Or are they like, we played really well last year. I don't know if we play that well again with this current cornerback room. Because if not, there's plenty of corners. Like there's plenty of corners that I think could make a ton of sense for them. It just depends on how aggressive they want to go. Like Dalen Everett, Devin Moore, David Igbinosun. Like those guys are man coverage type of corners that you could probably get somewhere on day 2 and feel pretty good about it. Keith Abney, Ephesians Prysock, Hezekiah Massis. Like those are dudes who are more of like guys who could play off coverage for you, really good in zone, really savvy, really smart in their technique. So I think that if they need a corner, they will have the ability to take one on day 2 and get an impact guy that might be a starter for them. It just depends on how they feel about Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart and those guys.
We do this with you every year, Trevor. We always talk about getting through day 1, day 2. What's going to be the headlines? Look into the crystal ball. What are the fans going to be talking about as far as the home run scenario for you? And before you say this and go through your players that you're about to pick, I want you to know that I came prepared to hear what you have to say, sir.
Okay, there we go, baby. I absolutely love it.
I
absolutely love it. Who was the second round pick for the haul that we had?
You had Mesidor and Bisontis.
Yeah, I think that's it, man. Like I really do. Like that's a light the cigar. That's a put the cigar. That is the put the cigar in your mouth. The feet go up. You're Mike Ditka after he traded all those picks for Ricky Williams, where he goes, all right, see you guys on the golf course, and you walk out of the room with a lit cigar. That to me is the perfect case scenario. Akheem Mesidor at 22, and if you can get one of, I'll even give you a one of Chase Bisontis, Keylan Rutledge, Emmanuel Pregnon at 55. You get one of those guys at 55. I think Bisontis is the biggest long shot, to be honest. But the other guys, you got a chance. But if you can come away with Mesidor and then one of those guards, I think you hit your two biggest needs with two players who can immediately help you next season.
Okay. And I'm going to leave this with you a dual scenario here. They got to answer.
All right.
So do you want to go rose-colored glasses or like glass half empty first?
I'm a glass half full kind of a guy, so let's leave that till the end. Let's end on a high note. Yes.
All right, let's say they don't get one of those tier 1, tier 2, or maybe tier 3 guards.
Mm-hmm.
And the current state Los Angeles Chargers is what they're rolling with for offense-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they bring in Keaton Mitchell. We've talked about the additions they had.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling about the offense with its current state plus a Mike McDaniel? Like, what is the floor ceiling for that crew versus floor and ceiling if that dream cigar scenario plays out?
I think that when I look at the offensive line right now, certainly your bookend tackles being healthy means the world. I like Tyler Biadasz in the middle here. And I think a lot of times, especially when you have all-star offensive tackles, you can overcome, guard play that might be a little bit more shaky. So when I look at the offensive line, the way that it's currently constructed, I think there's a world where you still have plenty of success on offense, because I think that McDaniel himself is going to scheme things up to get a lot of speed, to get things vertical, to really make the most out of Justin Herbert's arm. And I think at least the changes that they made are worthwhile. So like bringing in Cole Strange, certainly bringing in Tyler Biadasz is a really nice signing for them. If you go into the offseason with this offensive line, I think you're still okay. Now, if you go into next season and Bisontis is playing instead of Cole Strange or Trevor Penning, or basically Bisontis is playing one spot and you're letting Cole Strange and Trevor Penning battle it out for who's the best, zone blocking guard in Mike McDaniel's scheme on the other side. You feel pretty confident about where you're at that point, especially because Bisontis was a really good pass protector when he was at Texas A&M, or at least I felt like he was. So he'll be able to sort of hold his own in that category in the NFL. And then when it comes to the other side of things, if you go into next year with your edge rush group is Tuipulotu and Khalil Mack, you still have Kyle Kennard who can sort of work into the rotation a little bit, and you feel okay. I would be more worried, surprisingly, I would be more worried about the status quo of the defensive front than the offensive front. I know everybody focuses on the offensive line, but I think that McDaniel can work with the offensive line the way that it currently is. But I'm worried that there's not enough splash with the defensive line currently for them to be as disruptive as the Chargers want them to be.
Oh, man, I'm so scared.
But you're going to hit the dream scenario.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, if all of our prayers will finally be answered. That's what we're relying on.
You say things, and the reason why I'm more skeptical about the defensive line is I think you're forcing Khalil Mack to play more snaps.
I agree.
Than you are happy with right now. If you have Akheem Mesidor and him and Tully and Khalil are in like a constant rotation, those guys are all a lot more fresh, and I feel a lot better about the pass rush generation that they're able to give you. So that's sort of my answer to that. Is I'm just a little bit worried about where Khalil Mack is with his age and how many snaps he's going to be able to give you this year.
And then Jake, all you have to do is just go get like a tier 2, tier 3 edge free agent after the draft to bring in Dexter Lawrence, and
and then you trade for Dexter Lawrence, obviously. You somehow trade for AJ Brown as well, and then you're hosting 2 playoff games.
Yeah, perfect. Joe Ortiz would be back there in his Joker-esque makeup saying it's all part of the plan. Calm down. 11 wins, Pop. This is how everything works around here.
He's gonna pile the money up that he didn't spend in free agency, and he's gonna give the Joker line. Yeah. He's just gonna light it on fire.
Burns.
It's not about the money.
I don't know how everyone's portfolio is doing, but stock up for NFL Stock Exchange, and I am buying all the Trevor Sikkema stock.
Thank you, brother.
Say hi to Connor Rogers for us. What do you guys got?
Of course.
What do you got in the works here at NFL Stock Exchange or Trevor Sikkema's life?
So next Tuesday, at noon Eastern, is the 7-round charity marathon mock draft show that we are doing. We did it on a weekend last year. It was the first time that we ever did it, and it was an incredible success. We raised over $3,000 for 2 different charities that Connor and I were partnering with, and it was so much fun. And we did a mock draft where we went through every single pick, all 258 picks. It was a 7-round mock draft. It ended up being like a 7.5-hour stream. That was so much fun. We did it on a weekend last year, and we had a lot of people tune into it, and it was so much fun to do. This year, we're doing it on a weekday because we want to see, like, the weather's getting nice. You know what I'm saying? People are out on the weekends. So we're like, okay, what if we did it on the most boring work day of the week on a Tuesday, and we gave people a reason to have 2 screens up at work?
Sure.
You got the 7-round mock on one screen, and you're convincing your boss you're doing something productive on the other screen. So at noon Eastern is when we're starting that bad boy on April 14th. Come hang out with us, even if you're popping in the chat for 2 minutes or whatever. We would really appreciate any sort of views and support that we have, because all that money that's in that show and all the money that's donated will be going to charity once again this year. So we're hoping to do it even bigger and better this year.
I got to ask, what type of training regimen is there for a 7.5-hour mock draft scenario? I mean,
do you eat?
Food, drink, possible bathroom breaks. Like, what do you guys have to account for?
So I think it was last year where this bit was born, where I told Connor, I was like, hey, read some super chats. I'm gonna use the bathroom really quick. And I have a bathroom, but it's like 4 feet away from me. I'm in my office. So I have a bathroom in my office. So I put my headset down and I went and I peed and I washed my hands and I came back out, but it was within like 60 seconds because I don't have to go anywhere for it. And the chat just went insane. They're like, there's no way he washed his hands. He wasn't gone. I mean, and so then that's just that the meme was born then from I can't remember if it was that show or another one, but Scott Hansen has said this before on social media. Olives before the show, because you got to get the sodium content. You got to get the sodium so you retain all the water, so you don't have to have a bathroom break. Because Scott Hansen, it was commercial free. It was commercial free, and now it's not anymore. So
it's
now
kind of pseudo.
Now it's just 7 hours of football, which doesn't
with commercials on the side.
Sounds good.
Doesn't roll off the tongue as well, but we got to get the body ready, and so the next couple of days, I'll make sure that I'm training and getting the right conditioning for it, because it's a lot of fun.
The lighters and cigars will be ready. Everyone will be on the treadmill, the sweatbands and everything for this NFL draft coming up. But Trevor, honestly, man to man, appreciate you as always. You are one of the best, if not the best in the industry at what you do. NFL Stock Exchange, if you have not done so already, folks, I don't know where you've been, but go hit the subscribe button and go listen to them talk expertly about pretty much anyone you've never heard of when you get to round 6 and 7 or undrafted free agents. Trevor, you're the best. Excited to see what's next for you, my friend.
Dan, Jake, it's always good to be with you guys. Year 6.
Crazy.
And we got to make a year 7 next year. So absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on the show as always. Thanks, guys.
Let's bring those cigars next year, baby.